Welcome to CMS 101, and this is our introductory lecture, Foundations of Human Communication. So, human communication is at the center of everything that we do, and there has been need over the years for humans since the existence of man. In fact, at the very beginning of the existence of man, that man to man have some communications. In fact, the creator itself needs to communicate with the created. That is, we, his own creation. So, in this context, we'll be looking at the foundations of human communication. We'll be looking at the Nigerian first context, and then the African context, and then the global context. What you will be able to achieve today is we'll be defining human communication in academic and our everyday language. In our academic and everyday language. In our academic and everyday language, we would also explain why communication is a process, identify the core elements of communication. We'll distinguish transmission from meaning negotiation, and we'll also apply the concepts to Nigerian communication situation. So, when were you misunderstood? I want you to ask yourself this question. Have you ever been misunderstood? If you have, please share in the comments. If you haven't, why don't you speak to somebody nearby and ask them the question? Have you ever been misunderstood by somebody? When were you misunderstood? What caused that? Have you thought about that? There is tendency that we misunderstand ourselves sometimes, and some people, if you are able to misunderstand yourself, it means there are chances that people can misunderstand you. So communication failure is often not about speaking less, but about shared meaning failing. Meaning that you might have a clear understanding of what you want to say, but for some reasons, the other party do not grab it the way you have put it together. I wonder if this makes sense to you. You have something that you intend to communicate, but in the process of communicating it through a channel, you were unable to adequately deliver it, and perhaps you delivered it accurately, but the person do not have enough context to comprehend what you are communicating. So communication failure is not because you have spoken less, but it is because the shared meaning was not achieved. So in the quotes that you can see on my screen now, communication failure is often not about speaking less, but about shared meaning failing. Okay, human communication. Human communication is a social process through which people create, they share, they interpret, and they negotiate meaning using symbols. Using symbols. They use symbols, they use texts, and many more means of communicating. So, for example, we could create, we could share, we could interpret, we could negotiate meaning that we're trying to comprehend within our context what it means to A, that is sending the signal. It could mean something else to B. And then you're trying to negotiate it that, well, this is what I think, this is what it is. So you're trying to negotiate meaning using perhaps symbols within a specific context. These are some of those things that we need to be well aware of. Okay. All right. So we'll move from this definition and we'll proceed further. But I want you to understand the fact that it is a social process. Without social process, communication will achieve less. It is more effective when it is situated within social context. It is a way of communicating because it happens in the society. It's a social process. So, and it is a process through which people create, meaning that you create the message, you share the message, the person who receives it interprets it, and negotiate the meaning within their experience and exposure. And this could be achieved through symbols, but within a specific context. Now, the key contexts and terms that we should pay attention to today are social processes. It happens among people and relationship. Symbols, it could be words, gestures, images, silence, in fact, it's communication, emojis, and of course the tone. If I say, come here, and if I say, come here, if I say, please come here, if I say, could you please come here? Could you please come closer? Come closer, come closer. You see, these tones shows different messages. So we need to understand the symbols. Interpretation, meaning is not fixed. People decode differently. You can imagine when your parents tell you that when we get home, we'll talk about it. When we get home, we'll talk about it. If you have committed an offense, if they tell you, say, don't worry, when we get home, you know what that means already. But if, for instance, there is no contest, there's no issues, and say, when you get home, when we get home, and you'll be like, what will happen? But in a situation where there is contest of the fact that you're in the wrong, and your parent tell you, when we get home, you'll see. And you'll be like, I'm in trouble. So interpretation is not fixed. It varies to different people. Now, context, family, class, religion, media, history, they shape meaning. All of these things shape meaning. If you are from the rich family, the way you interpret things is different from a poor family, from an average family. In your class level, you Christian and Muslim, kneeling down means something else for the Christian, kneeling down means something else for the Muslim person. They kneel down to pray in both religion, but the purpose of kneeling varies. In Christianity, it could be an act of surrender, brokenness in the time of worship or prayer, a way of giving reverence. But in the Islamic faith, it is simply the way, the religion, the path that you must follow in order for you to, pray in the Islamic way. So media also matters. You have to understand the media, the medium through which the message is being passed. This is key. Now we have the history. History of the people shape the significance of the meaning here. So now, why is communication a process? Communication is a process because, one, it changes as people respond. It evolves as people respond. As I'm speaking, you could imagine that if we're having an interaction, I won't be speaking the way I'm speaking because it will become conversational. It will in fact become more interesting. That's why we often encourage engagement. So communication changes as people respond. And it is transactional. Both sides influence the outcome. This is what I've just explained. And it is irreversible, meaning that messages leaves social traces and you cannot change it. The moment you approach somebody and you start talking, you have already started creating an impression. And that impression cannot be changed except in a situation where you have communicated again to reverse such action. But it is totally irreversible because it will still leave its traces and the experience. And it is also context bound. Context bound, meaning that same words can mean different things in different settings. Yes, same word can mean different things in different settings. So we'll get to understand this as we move on to the course. And again, I want to share with you the 7 core elements. The 7 core elements. We've got the source or sender, the message, the channel, the receiver, the feedback, the noise, the context. Very important. The source is the sender. I have an idea, put idea together, send this as a message through a channel. The receiver gets it, collected the message, interpret the message, comprehend it, consume it, and then give a feedback. And in between the channel are what they call noise, things that can hinder the clarity. This could happen in the form of language barriers, it could affect, could be network issues, it could be other competing interests that can influence the interpretation. And of course, the last one, but not the least, is the context. Remember, context matters always. Now, what are the different type of noise? I've mentioned it. We have physical noises such as loud noise, bad network, poor audio. When we have semantic noise, which has to do with meaning, like jargon, the other party not understanding your real word, your communication, your terminologies. This causes noise. Ambiguous words, language mismatch could also be a kind of noise. And then we have psychological noise. Psychological noise could be an instance of you, having stress, or you have some bias, and this bias sort of affects the way you interpret meaning, the way you interpret information, the way you consume data, and your assumptions are also examples of psychological, noise. And then we have the cultural noise. Culture varies from countries to countries, so this can influence how we understand or consume messages. So conflicting norms and values can impact how messages are being consumed or understood. Then we have now come let's look at this Nigerian mini case and campus announcement confusion. A notice written in a formal administrative language is misunderstood by first year students unfamiliar with the technical term. Now, a formal departmental notice can fail if audience, language, and context are ignored. So, for example, if there is a campus announcement and there is no context, and if someone who is the first year student may be unfamiliar with the way it happens, the way what it intends to communicate, so they will need further context, they will need further administrative guidance, they will need, some kind of assistance, for them to understand it. That's why they call them fresher, because you know less. So that's just like a typical case that you can relate with. So the teaching point is that a semantic noise such as audience context mismatch, you might have been sent to the university community because you're new to the community, you are yet to comprehend it. Like there are slangs used, there are some names used, student unionism, slangs and slogans, names. People often use names such as nicknames, and you need to understand all of these things. So these are some of those contexts. And within a family too, family WhatsApp conflicts. Let's say a voice note intended as an advice is interpreted as an insult because of the tone, because of the timing, because of the prior tension. So the channel could, could affect the misunderstanding. And of course, it is also very relational. Then, if you look at it in public instance, if you say public safety messaging, if there is an urgent shared message in one language and misses to interpret such messages in another language, they won't comprehend it. So, for example, urgent information shared in one language will miss the communityness because other people who don't understand language exist, and it can affect how they will feel. So the teaching point here is that linguistic diversity requires audience adaptation. If you are communicating to Nigerians, you need to touch on the different languages that we've got, the major languages, the official languages, the local languages, depending on how much results you want to achieve. Yeah, that was a big yawn for me. All right. So now let's take a look at Nigerian Communication Infrastructure. We have the Nigerian Communication Commission, which reports the latest ISP subscribers data as at Q4 2025. And multiple channel exists, but access and quality varies by provider and location. This affects how quickly and clearly messages travel. Now, look at this. You use MTN, you use Airtel, you use Glo or whatever network have you. So, but the thing is,
This channel, multiple channel exists. However, the quality and access varies by provider and location, and this affects the deliverability, the effectiveness, the quality that you receive and you experience. So this is typical example of how it works even in Nigeria. You would agree with me that your data subscriptions, the service quality from network to network varies. Where one is strong, the other is weak. These are some of the noise, some of the challenges that we face. So in terms of multilingual and multimodal communication, many communication settings are multilingual. We have oral traditions which are socially important. You are from Yoruba family, Igbo family. The way we greet are different. The way we speak are different. The way our level of respect varies from one another. So we need to be aware of all of these things. That traditions remain socially important. Now, digital platforms are also increasingly mediating civic and interpersonal relationship. We should try as much as possible to understand that there is need for multimodality, there is need for multilingual platforms for us to be able to reach and ensure that we're not excluding some people out of our target populations. So, if, for example, if you are speaking Yoruba to an Igbo person who don't understand you, Yoruba, you won't be making any impact, or you won't be communicating effectively. So, legitimacy and cultural fit can also determine message success. Legitimacy and cultural fit, does it fit within the context? Does it fit within the Yoruba context? Does it fit within the Igbo context? How legitimate is the information? How usable it is? How authoritative are you? So if you are well positioned, if you're culturally grounded, you'll be well respected for what you're communicating. So we need to also pay attention to the fact that how legitimate an information and how culturally fit it is determines whether or not it is successful. Now, from the global lens, we have shared challenges in communication, such as connectivity in an expanding worldwide world. There is constant need to connect, and we're expanding over the time. More people are joining. The internet usability is on the increase, and then there is also need for us to also adapt to that so we're able to achieve the maximum impact. Digital divide obviously persists across countries and communities. Less people, if I would say more people are, less people are subscribing than those who are excluded. The lack of access to data has really cut people off communicating online. For example, people you find online are those who are able to afford data. Quite a lot of people are in poverty, and that leads us to the concept of internet poverty. Internet poverty is causing digital divides across countries and communities. An algorithm is also shaping visibility and interpretation. What the algorithm favor, why the algorithm favors some content, it doesn't recognize or promote some content. So algorithm also shape visibility, and of course it is location sensitive, geopolitical sensitive, and it's also based on what the proprietors have also designed it to favor. So we need to study the algorithm enough for us to make adequate and effective communication and engagement. So if you are on social media, you wonder why you're not getting engagement, like subscription, is because the algorithm is not pushing it to the right community. So you need to be well aware about how it is shaping your visibility and how it is interpreting what you put in. So you need to understand metadata for the different platforms in order for you to make effective communication. So more information does not always produce shared understanding. That you provided more information does not mean you have shared understanding. You have to be very intentional. You have to ensure that the information is appropriate, not just more, but appropriate, now for you to achieve shared understanding. And I would encourage you, if you are able to do this, form a group of 4 to 6. Use one message. Use one message. Submit this today, and then if you did well, or come or see me after the class, either of these 3, you could book a meeting. So I want you to form the group of 6. Interpret in 3 contexts: lecturer, student, parent, child, and friend to friend text. So you need to form a message.
You submit it to me, then you interpret it in different contexts in order for us to be able to identify the likely meaning and the emotional effect and feedback. Just make effort, just form a message. Use one message, just one message. And imagine that that message was communicated within a lecturer to student, parent to child, and friend to friend. What would it mean? Would it mean different thing for different people? So this is more or less like your message interpretation lab. Yeah. All right. Now, what have we learned today? Which elements change interpretation the mood from your experience? Which elements? What type of noise appeared? And how could the source improve clarity? And what role did relationship culture play? These are questions that you should play around with. Let us compare your results. What changed the meaning the most, and how can misunderstanding be reduced? How can it be possibly reduced? I'll just take a step back on this group work. Now, in groups, interpret one short message across the three contexts. One short message across, that's what I mean, and compare the meaning and see how it's changing from one person to the other. Okay? So, all right. So we've been able to learn all of these things, and then okay, communication is best seen as what kind of process? You can put the answer in the chat. Which option is not a communication element? That's another question we would look at, and then I'll pop that up probably in the next lesson. So you have to think about it, and in a very, very good way. So, and network failure is what type of noise? What kind of noise? So what does meaning negotiation imply? And why can one phrase mean different things across different groups? So individual reflection that I want you to have today is to describe your understanding. Describe your understanding. One misunderstanding you observe and identify the noise type. But before we go on there, I'd like to quickly ask you to take time to respond to this in the chat. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So now describe one misunderstanding you have observed and identify the noise type. Then you can define communication in your own words and mention at least 3 elements in the comment section. You can pause the video to do this. When you're done, continue. All right, so I'm giving you this assignment before our very next lesson. The title will be a communication breakdown I have experienced. Summarize the situation, contrast intended and interpreted message, and identify the element and noise type that you have observed. Then propose a clearer communication strategy. Take a screenshot of this so you can refer to it. So on this note, I would say we've been able to cover these key things, and then we'll be able to look at communication as a social and contextual meaning making, elements and noise to explain why misunderstanding, why it happens. We've covered elements, we've covered noise, and we've been able to explain why misunderstanding happens. And we've looked at it in Nigerian, African, and global contexts, showing different communication pressures across the world. And in the next lesson, we'll be looking at elements and models of communication in deeper and analytical form. So I would say thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in my next lesson. Cheers and